The Duke forced her to sign the divorce for his lover. She agreed, and he regretted that foolish choice. The pen trembled in Marian's hand as rain battered the study windows. Across the mahogany desk, Rowan Davenport, Duke of Westmarch, stood rigid in his perfectly tailored coat, watching her with eyes that had grown cold over the past year. The divorce papers lay between them like a death sentence, each line promising to erase 10 years of marriage as if they had never existed. But would signing set her free, or would it haunt them both forever? Hello, lovelies. Enjoying Marian and Rowan's heartbreaking journey? A like or subscribe would mean the world. It helps me bring you more tales of love, loss, and second chances from history's most complicated hearts. And please tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every note, and it truly brightens my day to hear from you. London, April 1824. The Duke's study smelled of leather and regret. 1. Marian Davenport had known this day was coming. She had felt it in the way Rowan stopped meeting her eyes at breakfast. She had seen it in how he flinched when her hand accidentally brushed his. She had heard it in the whispers that followed Lady Juliet Norwood's name through every London drawing room like perfume, sweet and suffocating. Now, standing in the study that had once been her refuge, Marian stared at the documents her husband's lawyers had prepared. The rain outside matched the storm building in her chest, but she refused to let it show. 10 years of marriage reduced to neat paragraphs and legal terms. "It's better this way," Rowan said, his voice carefully neutral. He stood behind his desk like a judge delivering a verdict. "You deserve a chance to start again, Marian, to find someone who can give you what I cannot." What a kind lie, Marian thought. He was not doing this for her. He was doing this for Lady Juliet, the beautiful widow who laughed at all his jokes and made him feel young again. The woman who had never sat up with him through his father's final illness, who had never managed his estates when fever kept him bedridden for a month, who had never loved him when he was just Rowan before he became a duke. "What you cannot give me," Marian repeated quietly, "or what you choose not to." Rowan's jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair, Your Grace." She used his title deliberately, putting distance between them. "But I suppose fairness was never part of our vows." She picked up the pen, and Rowan's eyes flickered with something. Relief? Guilt? She could not tell any more. Once, she had known every expression on his face. Now he was a stranger wearing her husband's features. "I have conditions," Marian said, her voice steady despite the way her heart cracked with each word. "If I am to sign away my marriage, I will not leave, with nothing but your charity." Rowan frowned. "The settlement my lawyers prepared is more than generous." "I'm sure it is, but I will have a townhouse of my own choosing, a modest place in a coastal town, far from London. I want it in my name alone, not held in trust by your solicitors." "Marian, that's not necessary. I would never—" "You are divorcing me for another woman," Marian interrupted, her composure cracking just slightly. "Forgive me if I no longer trust your nevers." The words landed like a slap. Rowan's face paled, but he nodded stiffly. "Very well. A house in your name. And a financial settlement. Enough to live comfortably without depending on anyone's goodwill. I want it placed in a bank account I control." "Agreed. And Mrs. Kellen?" Marian's voice softened. The housekeeper had been with her since she first came to Westmarch as a nervous bride. "She may come with me if she wishes, along with any other staff who choose to leave your service for mine." Rowan's expression tightened. "You're taking my staff now?" "I'm giving them a choice, something I was never afforded." The silence stretched between them, filled only by the rain's steady drumming. Finally, Rowan nodded. "Fine. Take whoever wishes to go." Marian signed each page with a hand that did not shake, though everything inside her was trembling. She had loved this man. She had loved him when he was kind, when he was distant, when he forgot her birthday but remembered to ask about her aunt's health. She had loved him through every season of their marriage, even the winters when his heart had grown cold. But love, she was learning, was not always enough. When she finished, she set down the pen and looked at Rowan properly for the first time since entering the study. He looked tired, older than his 40 years. There were lines around his eyes she did not remember, and grey threading through his dark hair. "I hope she is worth the price of a wife who would have died your friend, if nothing else," Marian said quietly. She walked toward the door, her green dress whispering against the floor. At the threshold, she paused without turning back. "Goodbye, Rowan. Not Your Grace, not my Lord." Just his name, simple and final. Behind her, Rowan watched her go. He noticed, for the first time in months, the way she held herself so carefully, as if one wrong move would shatter her completely. He saw how she touched the doorframe gently, as if saying farewell to the house itself. He realized, with a cold shock, that she was not crying, she was not begging. She was simply walking away with a dignity he did not deserve. After she left, Tom Reed found him still standing in the study, staring at the signed papers. "Well, Your Grace," Tom said, his weathered face disapproving. "I hope you know what you've done." "I've set her free," Rowan replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "You've thrown away a good woman for a pretty face. That's what you've done." Tom shook his head. "No decent man makes his wife sign her life away like she's cattle being sold." The words burrowed under Rowan's skin, but he pushed them away. He had made his choice. Juliet was waiting. The future he wanted was finally within reach. That night, as Rowan prepared to announce his engagement to Lady Juliet, Marian sat in a rattling carriage headed toward the coast. Rain blurred the windows, hiding London as it disappeared behind her. She pressed her hand against the cold glass and whispered to herself, "You asked for my freedom. Now I will learn what to do with it." 2. The seaside town of Whitford-on-Sea smelled of salt and fish and possibility. Marian's new house was small compared to Westmarch, but it was hers. Cream-coloured walls, large windows overlooking the harbour, and rooms that echoed with emptiness, waiting to be filled. Mrs. Kellen had come, as Marian knew she would. The older woman unpacked linens and complained cheerfully about the sea air ruining her bread dough. "But it's peaceful, my lady. No London gossip here." "I'm not my lady anymore," Marian said gently. "Just Marian. You'll always be my lady to me. Divorce papers don't change quality." 3 days after her arrival, Aunt Agnes appeared on the doorstep with 2 enormous trunks and a scowl. "Don't look at me like that," Agnes huffed, pushing past Marian into the house. "You think I'd let you rot in this fish-stinking corner of England alone? The train journey was murder on my back, and the inn served something they claimed was chicken, but tasted like old boots." "I didn't invite you," Marian said, but she was smiling for the first time in weeks. "Since when do I need invitations? I'm family. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't turn into one of those tragic, abandoned women who wear black and write terrible poetry." Marian's first weeks in Whitford were harder than she expected. She had been a duchess, accustomed to staff who anticipated her needs, and a life where decisions were made for her. Now she negotiated with grocers who tried to overcharge her. 2 shillings for butter, Marian said firmly to Mr. Perkins, the grocer. "I may be new to town, but I'm not stupid. It's quality butter, ma'am, fresh from 1 shilling 6pence. That's the fair price, and we both know it." Mr. Perkins grumbled, but accepted. After Marian left, he told his wife, "That new lady's got spine. I like her." Marian learned to keep household accounts, her neat handwriting filling ledgers with expenses and budgets. She learned which fisherman sold the freshest catch and which baker made bread that did not taste like sawdust. Small victories, but they were hers. One morning, while trying to move a heavy trunk alone, Marian felt the world tilt. She woke on her settee, with a concerned face hovering above her. "Can you hear me?" The man's voice was kind but firm. "You fainted. When did you last eat properly?" This morning, I think." Marian struggled to sit up, embarrassed. "You think? That means no." He set down his medical bag. "I'm Dr. Elias Hart. Your housekeeper had the good sense to send for me. Now, let's discuss why you thought moving furniture alone was wise." Dr. Hart was younger than she expected, with serious brown eyes and hands that handled her wrist gently while checking her pulse. He scolded her thoroughly about rest and nutrition, then returned 3 days later to check on her. "I'm fine," Marian insisted. "You needn't waste your time. It's not wasted if it keeps you from collapsing again. Besides, I'm curious about the London lady hiding in Whitford. The town's buzzing with speculation." "I'm not hiding. I'm simply living." "Good. Then you can help me with living too." He gestured toward his bag. "I run a small clinic near the harbour. Half my patients can't read the instructions I write." "You look like someone who knows her letters." And so Marian began spending mornings at Dr. Hart's clinic, reading prescriptions to elderly fishermen and teaching children their alphabet while they waited for treatment. It gave her purpose, something to think about besides the life she had lost. Meanwhile, in London, Rowan's new life glittered. Engagement balls, opera boxes, Juliet on his arm, beautiful in silk and diamonds, laughing at observations that Marian would have found merely adequate. Everyone congratulated him on his happiness. His mother wrote a stiff letter of approval. Society whispered that true love had triumphed. But cracks appeared quickly. "Must we really visit Westmarch next month?" Juliet pouted prettily over breakfast. "The season is just beginning. I'll die of boredom in the countryside." "The harvest needs overseeing," Rowan said patiently. "The tenants depend on—" "You have stewards for that. That's what you pay them for." She waved a dismissive hand. "Honestly, Rowan, you're not a farmer. You're a duke. Act like one." Marian would have asked about the tenants by name. She would have suggested they visit together, making it an opportunity rather than an obligation. Rowan pushed the thought away. At a charity event Juliet organised, Rowan watched her hold court among admirers, wearing a gown that cost more than some families earned in a year. The event, supposedly to raise funds for orphans, seemed more focused on showcasing Juliet than helping anyone. "Your Grace," an older gentleman said quietly, "I donated generously, but I'm not sure where the money is actually going." Lady Juliet mentioned new curtains for the organising committee's meeting room. Rowan felt his face heat with embarrassment. Marian's charity events had always been efficient and transparent. She had worked harder than anyone, often returning home, exhausted but satisfied that real help had been given. The final straw came when Rowan received a note from his solicitor confirming the divorce was legally final. He stared at the words until they blurred. "She is no longer my wife, not even in name." That night, he could not sleep. He kept remembering Marian's face in the study, the way she had signed those papers without tears or drama, the way she had walked away as if she had already mourned him. He wondered if she thought of him at all, and he wondered why that possibility hurt worse than he expected. 3. The engagement announcement appeared in every London paper, and with it came whispers Rowan had not anticipated. At his club, conversation stopped when he entered. Men who had been friendly became coolly polite. Rowan overheard fragments. Forced his wife out. Poor woman never stood a chance. If he did it once. His reputation, built on being a fair and steady duke, was crumbling. People saw not a love story, but a man who had discarded one woman for another. Worse, they pitied Marian, and their pity felt like accusations. Juliet, meanwhile, grew more demanding. "The marriage settlement needs adjusting," she announced one evening, sliding papers across the dinner table. "My solicitor says these terms are insulting." Rowan frowned. "Insulting? You'll have a generous allowance and—" "Not generous enough. I'm not some merchant's daughter, Rowan. I'm Lady Juliet Norwood. People have expectations." "What people?" "Everyone." She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Or did you think marrying me would be cheap?" He signed the revised settlement, unease growing in his stomach. The breaking point came in the stables. Rowan was checking on a mare recovering from injury when Juliet appeared, picking her way across the straw with obvious distaste. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere. We're late for the Ashford ball. I sent word we weren't attending. I need to—" "You need to stop playing farmer and act like a duke." Her voice sharpened. "Do you know how embarrassing it is when people ask why my fiancé prefers horses to society?" Tom Reed, mucking out a nearby stall, straightened. "Begging your pardon, my lady, but his grace has responsibilities here. Animals don't care about balls." Juliet's face twisted. "I wasn't speaking to you, servant. Know your place." Tom's weathered face flushed, but he said nothing more. Rowan felt anger flash through him. "Tom has been with this estate for 30 years. You will speak to him with respect." "Respect? He's a stable hand." Juliet laughed. "Really, Rowan, you've grown soft. Your previous Duchess may have coddled the servants, but I certainly won't." Marian knew everyone by name. She thanked them for their service. Yes, well, Marian was common. No breeding shows eventually. Juliet examined her gloves. "Are we going to this ball or not?" Rowan stared at her, truly looked at her. The beautiful face he had thought he loved seemed suddenly harsh. The laugh he had found charming now sounded shrill. The confidence he had admired was actually contempt for anyone she considered beneath her. "No," he said quietly. "We're not." That night, Rowan rode alone to a coastal property he owned but rarely visited. He told himself it was business, but his horse knew the truth. The animal headed straight for Whitford-on-Sea, as if drawn by something Rowan would not admit. He saw her by accident, or perhaps by fate. Marian stood outside Dr. Hart's clinic, laughing with 3 children who were showing her something in a bucket, probably crabs from the beach. Her dress was simpler than anything she had worn as a duchess, the hem muddy, her hair escaping its pins in the sea breeze. She looked free, she looked alive, she looked happy. Rowan's chest tightened painfully. She glanced up and froze. Their eyes met across the street, and for a moment the world stopped. Then Marian's expression shuttered. She said something to the children and walked toward him with the same careful dignity she had shown in his study. "Your Grace," her voice was polite, nothing more. "This is unexpected. I'm inspecting property nearby. I didn't know you were." He trailed off, suddenly aware of how foolish he sounded. "Living here? Yes. You signed the papers that made it possible." Her smile was small and sharp. "How is Lady Juliet?" "She's well." "I'm glad." Marian's tone suggested she was anything but. "If you'll excuse me, I have students waiting." "Students?" "I teach reading twice a week. The children here deserve an education." She started to turn away, then paused. Tom Reed wrote to Mrs. Kellen. He says Lady Juliet called him just a servant. Rowan felt shame burn through him. "I corrected her." "Did you?" Marian's hazel eyes met his, and they were sadder than he remembered. I'm sure that was very comforting to Tom, knowing his Duke defended him, after allowing his fiancée to insult him in the first place. She walked away before he could respond, her skirt swishing with finality. Rowan stood in the street, watching her disappear into the clinic. Around him, townspeople stared with open curiosity, but he did not care. A single thought echoed in his mind. Asterisk. I traded this for what, exactly? Asterisk. 4. Back in London, Rowan tried to focus on his engagement, but Juliet's demands multiplied like weeds. A financial crisis struck the estate. Flooding damaged tenant farms, and Rowan needed to divert funds to repairs and relief. He explained this to Juliet over breakfast, expecting understanding. "So we're cancelling the wedding ball," she said icily. "Postponing. My tenants need—" "Your tenants." Juliet set down her cup with a sharp click. "Your tenants need a duke who manages his money properly. This is exactly why estates have stewards. This is my responsibility. People are suffering. And I'm suffering with this cheap engagement ring, and a fiancé who values farmers over his future wife." She stood abruptly. "Perhaps you'd prefer someone more understanding. Someone like your dull little ex-Duchess who probably thinks helping peasants is noble. Don't speak about Marian that way." "Why? She's gone. You made sure of that." Juliet's beautiful face turned ugly with contempt. "Or are you regretting throwing her away? Missing your mouse of a wife who never complained?" Rowan's hands clenched. "She had more grace in her silence than you have in all your words. How dare you compare?" "I'm not comparing. I'm realizing." He stood, feeling something break loose inside him. "I made a terrible mistake, Juliet. Not in divorcing Marian, though God knows that haunts me, but in believing you were worth it." Juliet's eyes widened. "You're breaking our engagement? Over tenant farmers?" "No, I'm breaking our engagement because you showed me what I'd become. Someone who values appearances over people. Someone who forgot what actually matters." He pulled the ring from his pocket. She had sent it back to be resized 3 times and set it on the table. "I'm sorry. You deserve someone who sees you as I once did, but I'm not that man anymore." "You'll be ruined," Juliet's voice rose. "First a divorce, now a broken engagement. London will crucify you. Then they'll finally be honest about what I deserve." He left her standing in the breakfast room, shock and fury warring on her face. By evening, all of London knew. By the next morning, Rowan was the season's greatest scandal. He did not care. He rode straight to Whitford-on-Sea, arriving as dusk painted the sky purple and gold. He found Marian at the clinic, bandaging a fisherman's hand, while Dr. Hart stitched a boy's torn sleeve. "Marian." Her name came out rough. "May I speak with you?" She looked up, surprise flickering across her face. She saw something in his expression that made her nod slowly. "Dr. Hart, can you finish here?" "Of course." Hart's knowing look suggested he had heard the London gossip. Marian led Rowan outside, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the evening chill. They walked in silence until they reached her small house. Aunt Agnes was visible through the window, reading by lamplight. "You broke your engagement," Marian said, not a question. "Yes." "Why?" Rowan took a breath. "Because she said, if I regretted casting aside my mouse of a wife, I should go fetch you back. And she was right about one thing. I do regret it. Every single day." Marian's expression hardened. So you've come to fetch me? Like a dog that ran away? No. The word came fast and firm. I came to tell you that you were right about everything. I forced you to sign those papers because I was a coward who chose passion over partnership. I threw away a woman who loved me for one who loved what I could give her. And I have no right to ask anything from you except, his voice cracked, except that you know I finally understand what I destroyed. You destroyed a marriage, Marian said, her voice shaking. You humiliated me in front of all of London. You made me sign away 10 years as if they meant nothing. Do you know what that felt like? To sit across from you and erase myself? I can't imagine. No, you can't. Because you were so busy convincing yourself you were being honest and noble. Tears spilled down her cheeks now. You told yourself you were setting me free, but you were just too selfish to live with the guilt of wanting someone else. It was easier to make me the one who left. I know. Rowan's own eyes burned. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so desperately sorry, Marian. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to hear me say it. You were the only person who ever made me better than I am. And I threw you away like you were nothing when you were everything. The door opened. Aunt Agnes stood there with a loaf of bread and a glare that could melt stone. Oh good, the Duke. I was just thinking this day needed more tension. She thrust the bread at Marian. Here, fresh from the baker. Now, shall I throw him out? Or are you two going to stand here crying in the street like players in a bad drama? Despite everything, Marian laughed. It was watery and half-broken, but it was a laugh. Go inside, Aunt Agnes. Fine, but I'm watching through the window. You hurt her again, Your Grace, and I don't care what title you have. I'll hit you with this bread, and it's quite hard. She disappeared back inside. Rowan and Marian stood in the gathering dark, years of love and hurt and anger between them. I can't forgive you, Marian whispered. Not yet, maybe not ever. I understand. But She closed her eyes. I still love you. God help me. I still love the man you used to be, the one who held my hand during thunderstorms and asked about my day and made me feel seen. He's still here, buried under arrogance and stupidity, but still here, and he'll spend the rest of his life proving it if you let him. Marian wrapped her shawl tighter. Go back to London, Rowan. I need time. Time to breathe without you in my space. Time to figure out if what I feel is love or just habit. How much time? I don't know. Maybe forever. She met his eyes, and they were fierce. But if, and this is a very large if, you want any chance at rebuilding what you destroyed, you'll respect that. No grand gestures, no forcing your way back into my life. Just go and let me decide. Rowan nodded, even though it felt like tearing his heart out. I'll wait, however long it takes. He walked away into the darkness, leaving Marian standing on her doorstep, shaking with the weight of being seen and acknowledged at last. 5. Summer came to Whitford-on-Sea. Weeks passed, then a month. Marian heard reports from Mrs. Kellen, who still had friends at Westmarch. The Duke's not in London anymore, Mrs. Kellen said casually over tea. Staying at the estate, working the fields with the tenants, they say. Getting his hands dirty like a common farmer. That's nice, Marian replied, pretending not to care. Turned down 3 invitations from pretty widows too. Politely, but firmly. Said he's not fit company for anyone right now. Marian said nothing, but she thought about it more than she wanted to admit. Dr. Hart noticed. You're distracted lately. Want to talk about it? Not particularly. If you don't want him, that's your right. But don't punish yourself forever just to prove you're strong. Strength is also knowing when to let someone try again. Even Aunt Agnes weighed in. Look, I hate that idiot Duke as much as anyone. But if you still love him, make him work for it. Don't die of stubbornness, child. Life's too short. On a warm evening in July, Marian wrote a short note. She addressed it to Rowan at Westmarch and sent it before she could change her mind. Asterisk. Meet me at the cliff path overlooking the harbour. Saturday at noon. We should talk. Asterisk. Saturday arrived with clear skies and nervous energy that made Marian change her dress 3 times. Finally, she settled on a simple blue gown and walked to the cliffs alone. Rowan was already there, standing at the edge, looking out at the sea. He was thinner than she remembered, and tanned from outdoor work. When he turned and saw her, his face transformed with hope and fear. "You came," he said. "I said I would." Marian joined him, keeping careful distance between them. "You've been busy, I hear." "Working. Trying to be the Duke I should have been all along. The one who remembers that titles come with responsibilities, not just privileges." "And Lady Juliet?" "Married a Viscount last month. Someone who appreciates what she offers and doesn't expect her to care about tenant farmers." Rowan's smile was sad. "I hope they're happy. Genuinely. We were wrong for each other." "And us?" Marian forced herself to ask. "Were we wrong for each other?" "No, I was wrong for you. I didn't deserve what you gave me, and I was too stupid to realize it until I'd destroyed it." They stood in silence, wind pulling at their clothes, seabirds crying overhead. Finally, Rowan spoke again. "I've written letters to key members of the Ton, explaining that our divorce was entirely my decision, my selfishness, that you deserved better than what I gave you. I want the record clear. You are not the one who failed. I am. That will damage your reputation further. I don't care. You spent months bearing shame that should have been mine. It's time I carried it." Marian felt something crack inside her. "Why now, Rowan? Why work so hard to fix what you broke?" "Because I finally understand what I lost. Not a duchess, not a convenient wife to manage my household. I lost my partner, my friend. The only person who ever made me want to be better than I was." He turned to face her fully. "I can't undo the divorce. I can't erase what I did to you. But I can promise you this. If you give me another chance, it won't be like before. No more taking you for granted. No more assuming you'll always be there while I chase fantasies. And if I said I've built a life here," Marian's voice shook, "that I'm no longer your Duchess and don't want to be again, then I would thank you for letting me apologize, and I would spend the rest of my life proving to myself that I deserved to lose you." His grey eyes were steady and honest. "But I would respect your choice, no matter what it cost me." Marian looked at him. Really looked. She saw the man she had married, buried under years of neglect and arrogance, finally surfacing again. She saw genuine remorse. She saw change. She also saw the risk. Loving someone who had hurt her so deeply meant opening herself to more pain. "I still love you," she admitted quietly, "but I don't trust easily anymore. If there's any future for us, it can't be built on me sacrificing everything again. It has to be partnership, real partnership." "Yes." Rowan's voice was fierce with conviction. "Whatever that looks like, yes. I won't move back to Westmarch immediately. Maybe not for months. You'll need to come to my world too. I'll rent a house here. Tomorrow, if you'll let me. And we start over, slowly, like we're courting again, but with honesty this time. No pretending things are fine when they're not. No more silence when words are needed." "Agreed." He held out his hand tentatively. May I? Marian looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she placed hers in it, feeling the familiar warmth of his palm, the calluses that were new from farm work. They stood on the cliffs, holding hands while the sea crashed below, two people who had loved and lost, and were tentatively choosing to try again. The next months were slow and careful. Rowan rented a small cottage in Whitford, and spent his days helping at the clinic, walking with Marian along the beach, visiting the estate as partners to check on repairs and tenants. Their conversations were honest and sometimes painful. Marian told him how humiliated she had felt signing the divorce papers, how she had cried herself to sleep for weeks. Rowan listened, without making excuses, letting her anger and hurt exist without trying to explain it away. He told her about Juliet's superficiality, but more importantly, about his own failures. How he had taken Marian for granted because she never complained. How he had confused excitement with love and stability with boredom. I thought passion was everything, he admitted one evening as they watched the sunset. But passion burns out. What you and I had, partnership, friendship, trust, that's what lasts. And I threw it away like a fool. By autumn, they had rebuilt something fragile but real. Not the marriage they had before, but something new. Something both of them chose deliberately. One October morning, Rowan asked her a question. Will you marry me again? Marian raised an eyebrow. We're already married legally. The divorce never fully processed through Parliament. I know, but I want to choose you properly this time, in front of witnesses, with vows we both mean. They married in Whitford's small church on a crisp November day. No London society. Just townspeople who had watched Marian rebuild her life. Dr. Hart, Aunt Agnes crying noisily into her handkerchief, Tom Reed representing Westmarch, and Mrs. Kellen beaming with pride. Marian walked down the aisle alone, wearing a cream dress and carrying wildflowers from the cliffs. She had no father to give her away, because this time she was giving herself freely. Rowan waited at the altar, no longer the cold, distant Duke from the study, but a man who had learned the hard way what mattered. Their vows were simple but powerful. I vow to listen, Rowan said, to trust you even when I'm afraid, to be your partner in all things, not just the easy ones. I vow to speak, Marian replied, to tell you when I'm hurt instead of staying silent, to build a life where neither of us gets lost. After the ceremony, a child tugged on Marian's dress. Are you a duchess again now, ma'am? Marian laughed and knelt down. I'm Marian, that's quite enough. Rowan added quietly, and to me, that has always been the highest title. They walked out of the church together into autumn sunshine, hand in hand, ready to split their time between Westmarch and Whitford, determined that every future decision would be made together. London would gossip, of course. The divorce, the broken engagement, the quiet remarriage, it would fuel drawing room conversations for years. But Rowan and Marian no longer cared. They had survived the worst of their own making and emerged on the other side with something precious. A second chance they had both earned through honesty, humility, and the courage to change. As they walked along the cliff path that evening, Marian stopped to look at the sea, the same view she had stared at when she first arrived, heartbroken and alone. Do you regret it? Rowan asked quietly. Any of it? Marian thought about the pain, the humiliation, the months of rebuilding herself from nothing. Then she looked at the man beside her, the one who had learned to be worthy of her love. I regret what we lost, she said honestly. But what we've built now is stronger because it broke first. We're choosing each other with open eyes. Rowan kissed her hand. Then I'm grateful for the breaking, even though I caused it, because it taught me what you were always worth. They stood together as the sun set over Whitford-on-Sea, two people who had learned that love is not just about passion or duty, but about choosing each other every single day, especially on the days when it's hard. And that choice, made freely by both of them, was worth everything. If this story of second chances and hard-won redemption moved you, hit that like button.